Buying a 10-year-old 100,000-mile Tesla might sound like a risky proposition. It might even be a risky proposition, but as long as it still works, it's undoubtedly one of the best daily drivers for the money. These cars are relatively quiet and comfortable. This one accelerates faster than even my fastest sports cars, and even though it's old in car years, it feels way more high-tech than this much newer, much more expensive Bentley. And I was enjoying this car every single day over the last 3 weeks since I got it, until it broke. Now the car still runs and drives, and the battery is holding a charge for now, so it's nothing too crazy, but the problem is one of those annoying ones that does greatly restrict its usability. So for now, I've parked it and went back to my trusty 10 mile per gallon Ford Super Duty. Now, as long as we can source the parts, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to fix this Tesla ourselves, and this repair should unveil what's in store for a longer term used Tesla ownership experience. Now, if you didn't catch the previous video, I bought this Model S as a bank repossession, and while it was marked dead, it just needed a charge to get it up and running. Besides this, the main drive battery fuse had reached its end of life, which cost $300 to get it replaced at Tesla, and its driver front control arm was worn out, which cost $150 for a set of replacements, plus a few hours of our time to install. Besides these few painless repairs, everything's been well, but I've already spent $450 getting the car sorted, and now we'll end up throwing a bit more cash at it to fix its latest problem. All this in less than a month, which might explain why the value and sentiment in these used electric cars have tanked.
And Tesla has earned a bit of a reputation of that type of car you don't want to own while it's out of warranty. But I'd argue there's much worse cars, much more unreliable cars, and this is definitely one of them. This is an Alfa Romeo. It's in immaculate condition, has super low miles, and well, it's broken to the point where it will hardly even run. And this is what we're looking for right here. This should be the access lid for our fuel pump. Now, the story goes that my mom's driving this car and it starts to run a bit rough and a check engine light pops on. So she immediately calls me. I tell her to bring it by on the way home so I could do a quick code read. When she brought it, I found these codes for low fuel pressure. Now, I went and did a quick search online. And it turns out all of these newer Alfa Romeo Stelvios and Giulias, especially the first model years, came from the factory with pumps that would overheat, and it's like a very common problem. Now, my mom is very similar to this car in the fact that she's Italian and very stubborn, and when I told her she needed a replacement fuel pump, she kind of freaked out. She thought it was something catastrophic and thought it was a really big problem. So she did what any Italian mother would do, and she called my brother. And my brother, he's a know-it-all. He came over, he took one look at the car without doing anything and said, "Ma, you just need a new battery." So now she's all relieved. He goes and takes apart her trunk to get to the battery, pulls it out of the car, takes it to the local auto parts store. They put it on a tester and they go, "Your battery is just fine." So he brought the same battery back, put it back in the car. She kept driving it. Finally, the car actually broke down. Luckily, it was close to home. And we're going to hopefully just throw this replacement fuel pump in. It shouldn't be too bad. Of course, while I'm trying to sort this thing, my brother, the know-it-all, calls, and he's got his car at a shop right now. His tire keeps losing air. Thought he could get a quick patch. Well, this is what it looks like right here. And this is what happens when you drive around on a flat tire. Anyway, they want over $700 to replace just the 2 rear tires on his BMW. I told him, don't even think about it. Limp it home one more time, and we're going to go straight to PriorityTire.com. When we put in his BMW 5 Series, up popped up over 200 different tires available. These GT radials that we picked out were a little bit over $80 each. And since every Priority Tire order ships for free, his pair will be delivered direct to his door for around $160. By the time they're installed, that'll be around a $500 savings compared to the quote he just got at the local tire shop. And it's why I only shop Priority Tire when it comes to getting new tires, whether it's on a Ferrari or a Ford F-250. They have a huge selection at the best prices available. And of course, my viewers are always going to get a 5% discount when they use this code right here. I've also left it down in the description box. Every tire that they sell comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Check them out if you're in need of some fresh rubber over at PriorityTire.com.
Now back to that fuel pump. This should have been just a quick and easy swap, but it turns out that the part I ordered all the way from England was the wrong one. The top hat on our original assembly has 2 ports. The replacement part that was marked specifically for cars that fell into this build date has 3 ports. The right thing to do here would be to return this part and get the right one, but with a full tank of gasoline lingering in the garage, we needed to find a quick solution, so let's just swap that old hat onto the new assembly since everything else basically looks the same. So I cut the main fuel feed line off the old pump, measured it, and got a piece of corrugated fuel hose that would closely match the factory one. And I started rigging everything up, and of course I didn't look close enough and found another port in the bottom part of the new pump. Now when it comes to a fuel repair, especially on my mother's car, we've got to take the safest route possible. And that's what I would have thought if my head hadn't been around an open tank of fumes for the last few hours, so I continued to disassemble both new and old pumps and made one working assembly. With the pump taken apart, you could see it was definitely overheating, and I have to wonder after this many years why Alfa hasn't learned from Ferrari's mistakes.
I really hope whatever we just did ends up working, because it was miserable to get all those connections in while half fits in the fuel tank, while the guide pins are above, and then you gotta connect other things on the underside of the hat with it halfway assembled. Took me way too long. I'm gonna finish connecting everything, lock the seal ring, we'll see if it turns on. As long as this thing powers up and runs and idles and doesn't have a fuel smell, we could consider it fixed. I'm always looking for the push to start. We'll cycle it a few times on and off to prime the fuel pump. Zoom out, foot on the brake, 3, 2, 1. All right, well, it's hooked up. We know that. Now we'll do the smell test. We would be smelling it right under here. It would be leaking out up over this. Everything smells all right so far, but then again, I've had my face in that gas tank for the last hour or so, but everything looks good. Let's look for leaks. No leaks. This thing is running and driving like it should, so I'm going to consider this job done. One of the funny things is, even though we ordered the incorrect pump assembly, we ended up saving a few $100s because of that. Now, again, I ordered this pump because it said it was for build dates up to 2019 and for the United States market, which is exactly what this car is. But it turns out that the alternate part, which looks very similar, costs nearly 3 times the price. The one I ordered was 80 pounds, so roughly like 100 US. And the right part is 240 pounds, almost 300 bucks. Knowing what I know now, if I could go back before the repair and order the right part for that few $100s more, I totally would have, because in the middle of everything apart, you gotta like kind of scramble and figure out what you're doing. And this is my mom's car. I just want it to work right. But to save a few $100s because you made a mistake, well, it's kind of a minor win here. Anyway, I'm gonna finish the final assembly on this car, clear all the codes, then let's hop on over to that Tesla. So here's what's going on with the Tesla. You can see here that the window is open, and one day I went and put the window down. You hear that? The motor is working. When we go to pull it up, ugh, it just sounds nasty. It sounds like there is a regulator problem. There's just loose cord moving around a pulley there that's probably broken apart. Regulator failures are super common on all sorts of cars, especially the European ones. And on Teslas, I'm guessing that they're becoming more and more common as these cars age, because one of the big third-party parts manufacturers that you see at all the auto parts stores here in the United States, they already sell an aftermarket set of window regulators for the front doors in these Teslas. So in order to get to that part, we've got to take the panel off, and I think we've got to look for hidden screws behind the trim here. What the heck? Now I know why he was using a steak knife. There we go. The door panel was on so tight I thought it was the first time that it's ever come off the car, but clearly someone's already been here before, because usually there are pieces of tape over all of these access holes here. This is where we go to undo the hardware to get our regulator up and out, and if we look in here, you can already see part of our problem. There's a cord in there that is all messed up. So our metal cord has come off the plastic pulley. That pulley might have broken, we'll see. But I'm gonna go and start undoing a few of these nuts in here, which should let us get out the glass first, then the regulator. All right, I had to get to that fastener right there, that nut, and it was a little tricky because you can see how tight quarters it is. What made things really easy was this very tiny 1/4 inch that I have. That got right in there, loosen that up. The other side is just a push pin. You push it, glass pops up. Now, I already removed the couple nuts for the regulator. This thing should kinda just shimmy out the top here. Wow, I've never seen anything like this, but then again, this regulator is a little different. You've got the gear, which is encased here, but the metal got so tangled up in there, and it put tension on the case itself, just shattering it. So this is all broken. This is obviously our point of failure. We have to pull the motor off, and we'll transfer it to our replacement regulator, which I told you already. We got it at the auto parts store, and I thought that was really cool. You can actually buy Tesla parts at the auto parts store. Now, this is made by a company called Dorman. They make a lot of replacement parts, and they do so for common failure items. So I'm sure this is a common failure item. And all we have to do before we put that motor in place is snip this zip tie off right here, pull the face off right here. There we go. Now this is the part where everything should just kind of go back together, but instead everything went wrong. The hardware all went back into the door with no problems, but I noticed my driver door handle was stuck out and it would no longer open that door. Now the rear one, it was in and it would no longer pop out. Now I needed the regulator in a different position so I could install the window back, but when I plugged the window switch in, it didn't work at all. Since everything in this car is electronic, it's clear that something has shut down and I can't move the windows on the driver's side door until that system is back online. Now all the other windows seem to work until you open their doors, then they shut down again, which is really unusual. And this was very confusing. And instead of stopping and fixing the clear problem in front of me, I made more problems. Now, first I thought that maybe if I loosely just put the door panel back on that driver door and close it, it would bring my window back online. But it didn't, and now I couldn't open my driver door from the inside nor the outside. This whole entire time I felt like I was in an escape room with problems just compounding quickly. But like with every escape room, there's usually some cheesy solution. So I first called my friend Rich, who supposedly knows everything about Teslas. It turns out he doesn't really know much about Teslas. Then I went online and found a guy who had a great idea. He said if your door handles stop working, unplug the fuse for those electronic handles, reinstall the fuse, and then it'll basically reboot that system. Now the fuses for this car are in the most convenient location ever, underneath the passenger side kick panel. So I took it all apart, pulled the 2 fuses for both our power windows and door handles, and here was the problem. A blown fuse that operates both the window switches and the power handles for the front doors. Now because it's a Tesla and it's different, it uses 3-pronged fuses, which of course I didn't have, but luckily they did sell them at the auto parts store. Now since I closed my door with the power door handle fuse out, the only way back inside the car was through the windowless door. Come on, I want to hear the door handles move when I do this. I just heard the door handles all move. Let's see. Oh, come on, please. Please work. Yes, 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 yes. That's what we wanted. Okay, now, how about my window switches? All right, window switches are back. Now, let me close this door again. Let me see. Let's see. This is what we want to hear. Yes. All right. Our door handles are back in business. And our window moves up and down pretty well perfectly.
Now, thinking about all the cars we've discussed up till now, even though they're all very different, they all share one major similarity. No matter if it's rarely used, like my mom's Alfa, or if it's a daily driver, like this Tesla, or my brother's BMW, well, as long as they're aging, they're going to have problems, and you can work through all these problems. Even if they have more problems, through these problems, the solutions are generally pretty simple, and one of the best things you could do is just take a break from that problem when you encounter it. A few hours will make you work so much quicker and more efficiently when you come back to it than just trying to push your way through it in the moment. Again, this is just most of the time. Sometimes you do get those cars that are major issues, and well, you got to remember there's another way of dealing with those, and that's just eliminating the problem altogether. This is my most recent sale, the triple blue Ferrari 360 Spider. Overall, this car was a decent buy, but its convertible top issues proved to be too time consuming to deal with. So I sold it at auction, and after loading it up on the trailer, I noticed one of the tires looked a bit flat, and getting a little closer, all of them are just worn out. It'll be fine to take this on one more trip, but to stay on top of things, I ordered 4 trailer tires over at Priority Tire. Taking these cars to the auction is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you get that great feeling that comes with selling a car, but while I'm there, I tend to take a quick look around, which always leads to me spending more on something I likely don't need. So now we've got to take a trip to a further out auction to pick up a V10 sedan that I ended up winning. But first, I'll get these tires replaced. In just a few days, our new ones showed up, and I took them straight to the local tire shop.
When you haul a trailer as much as I do, a new set of tires is just cheap insurance. These things last a pretty long time, and they're relatively inexpensive, especially when I use my own discount code at PriorityTire.com. So if you're in need of some new trailer tires or maybe a set of truck tires, head on over to Priority Tire at the link down in the description. With the trailer cleared off, we have space for one more car, and I already told you I won a V10 sedan. Get this, for $1,950. Final bid price is going to probably be a total nightmare, but I want you guys to guess what it could be down in the comments. There's not that many V10 sedans to choose from, but I'll give you one major hint, and that's that I've never made a video on one, and I've never owned one, so those are your hints. Let me know what you think, and make sure you're followed along here so when I release the video on that, you're the first to find out. Now, let's quickly shift gears to something that actually shifts gears. And that's the Turbo Porsche Cayman, a car that you guys have been asking quite a bit about recently.
A while back, we picked up this cheap manual Cayman that wouldn't stop smoking, and we sorted that issue by rebuilding its aftermarket turbo. And then we installed an oil scavenge kit to keep things working more reliably and for longer. And I wanted to really love this car, as the last Porsche I had was a treat, and I daily drove it for almost a year. And I think the main issue with the Cayman for me was its worn out and slammed suspension. Every time there was any sort of incline, it would scrape, and it drove horribly. I felt like there was much more potential to the car, so I opted to refresh its suspension with a set of coilovers. Now, I've done coilovers a bunch of times on different cars, but if available, the best ones for the money are definitely Bilstein's. Bilstein is known for a lot of OEM suspensions on European sports cars, and the ride qualities from their coilovers is like a factory shock, but with a ton of additional customization. Now, the install on this Cayman was a bit involved. Since Porsche hides the rear strut mounts under a bunch of interior trim, there's a lot of disassembly. Otherwise, they install just like any other suspension setup. We did run into some of the typical old car issues like rusted and corroded hardware, and the easiest thing to do here was cut where you could and then just buy replacement parts. The good thing is, since the Cayman shares its platform with the Boxster, there are a ton of used and generally low mileage parts available all over the internet.
With all 4 corners on, we've got these adjusted basically where I think they're going to be for the long term. I've got them sitting a little bit higher, which will give us a more factory-like ride height. If you saw the undercarriage of this thing when we were working on it, it's all scraped up. This thing was basically sagging to the ground. This will still sit a little bit lower than factory, but it should be perfect. And one of the best features about these specific Bilstein coilovers, they're both rebound and compression adjustable by just spinning this little knob on the bottom here. I currently have them set all the way on the softest setting so we could see what it rides like and then adjust from there. Now, since this was the last side I had up here, you can see it looks like there's a lot of wheel gap, but that'll all settle when we take a quick drive. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Oh my goodness. You can already feel an incredible difference even at low speeds. Like right now I'm going over a little bit of the grass. Wow. right, let's shut this thing off. It sounds really noisy between that scavenge pump, the dinging of the dashboard, and the exhaust. It is just a completely different car. So this car has 104,000 miles on it. I'm pretty sure that the original shocks had 104,000 miles on it, and then someone stuck lowering springs on it. And usually lowering springs really, really wear out factory shocks quickly, and you could feel it. This thing was like riding on something wooden. It was really tough, and it would constantly scrape because the lowering springs were so aggressive. Now this thing feels planted, and dare I say, it feels like what a new Cayman would feel like. I can almost guarantee you it feels way better than what these cars came with from the factory. I remember the base Cayman being a little bit squishy. It's not squishy anymore. It feels firm. It feels planted. It's just awesome. So here's what it looks like now that it's settled a little bit after our drive. And maybe the rear could go down a hair, but otherwise this thing just works so much better now. Now check this out, it's insane. It's an invoice for around $12,000 to have a bunch of things serviced on this Porsche. The previous owner of this car sent it to me after finding our videos, and well, for this $12,000 he did get a clutch and a flywheel, and he did get the turbo rebuilt, but then he just got a bunch of other generic service items like spark plugs, fluids, and things like that. And that wasn't that long ago, and that's a ton of money. And it goes to show you that even if you spend a lot of money on your car, if you don't put it in the right places, like, it's still not going to make this thing enjoyable. Obviously, when we first got it, well, it just wasn't working well because the turbo was smoking. But even when we fixed that, it wasn't enjoyable. And one of the worst parts was that rickety old suspension. So with that Bilstein coilover kit, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 or $16,000 all in on this Cayman. And when you think it's a turbocharged coupe Porsche with a manual transmission in the mid-teens, I mean, it's an amazing value. It's impossible to even find those 996 turbos with super high miles under 40 grand now. So this is an awesome car, and one that is finally a pleasure to drive.
But no matter how much fun or how much character a car like this Cayman has, every time I drive the Tesla, everything around it feels obsolete. It's like going from a BlackBerry to an iPhone. Sure, the BlackBerry did the job and was a huge upgrade from your flip phone, but it would be near impossible to go back. Unless, say, like something trivial broke and it stopped things from working altogether.